Good morning. A very good morning. A very warm good morning. Every type of good morning. Okay, no problem. Chalo. So in our last section, we have started the. Actually, we finished the topic of Renaissance and its importance into the emergence of sociology. Yes. So now here onwards, we will start with the new topic, the new sociological event which took place in the Europe, and that was the Enlightenment. Now, Enlightenment in itself is definitely a revolutionary movement, okay, and its importance is not limited only with the European society, but also it is highly relevant for the global society. And that aspect we are today going to discuss here, okay? That aspect we are going to discuss today, and we are going to connect it with the emergence of sociology, how sociology emerged because of the Enlightenment. Why we are studying this topic again? So never forget about that same aspect, that the syllabus, that how sociology emerged because of the modernity, and modernity how it emerged or started because of the social changes. What social changes? Enlightenment. Getting my point? So always connect, okay, remain connected with your roots, and root is what? Why and how sociology emerged. Okay, so Enlightenment. Now might be you have revised whatever the lectures we have discussed here, and we have discussed that how Renaissance is a landmark event. Landmark was a landmark event in the European society, and it started in the 14th century and it continued up to the 15th and 16th century. And after that, okay, means after commercial revolution, scientific revolution and reformation, now we are moving toward the Enlightenment. Enlightenment took place or started. It becomes vary from one thinker to another thinker. Few thinkers believe that in 16th century itself Enlightenment started, and few thinkers believe that no, it was the 17th century when the particular Enlightenment era was started. Now folks, just I told you that we don't have that much importance of these all dates and all that, but just for the getting a particular understanding or crystal clear understanding, if you know when those events took place, then that will help you. Okay, so Enlightenment. In another word, what is Enlightenment? In a simple word, it is the revolution of ideas. It is the revolution of ideas. Getting my point? So it is a revolution of ideas. See, sociology is the child of age of revolution. Age of revolution, which started from the 14th century, keep continued up to the 19th century. Lot many revolutions took place. Commercial revolution, scientific revolution, reformation revolution, and now the revolution of ideas, that is Enlightenment. Enlightenment, where the human being in European society started to think. And it is not just started to think, but it is started to raise questions. And not only that, it is not just limited only with the raising question, but it started to demand reforms. Again, there also this particular thing was not limited. Folks, with the reforms, they started to demand a radical, transformative social change within the society. Within the society. So, starting thinking, raising questions, reformations, or demanding for the reforms, everything happened from the 14th century up to the 16th century. But now, in this era, from 17th century onwards, these people, these thinkers, these intellectuals, they have not limited only with the asking question and demanding reforms. They wanted their own rights. They wanted the complete transformative social change. They wanted to complete get rid of all those medieval dogmas, medieval rigid systems. That is enlightenment. This was the age of idea. This was the revolution of ideas. Okay. Now we will discuss here one by one that what does mean by the revolution and all that. But before that, what we have discussed here, the Renaissance and the particularly the scientific revolution also. Yes. So we have discussed that during the time of Renaissance, the Renaissance was the golden age, golden era for the art and literature, revival of the ancient literature, you know. At the same time, it was the rebirth of classical learning, it was the rebirth of the all those natural sciences, scientific temperament and all that, okay. So we have discussed that, you know. After that, we have also discussed that how scientific revolution impacted over the society, and because of the scientific revolution, the logic, reason, observation, experimentation became the life of people, okay, the way of life of people. So that thing we have discussed. So Renaissance, during the Renaissance, okay, just there is a little bit we have to make some reforms here, just for example. Okay. So what we have discussed that Renaissance took place because or in the form of commercial revolution as well as the scientific revolution. Yes. So we have discussed this one. Now after this, because of this, you know, or this leaded or created a background for the largely for the enlightenment. So now we are here to the enlightenment. So enlightenment, particularly, just I told you that enlightenment is the age of revolutionary ideas, or enlightenment was the revolution of ideas. So definitely somebody has to put forward these ideas, somebody has to develop these new ideas, okay. So who develop those ideas? Thinkers, intellectuals, thinkers. Now thinkers here particularly, they were not limited with the economy, they were not limited with the political science, they were not limited with the geography. These thinkers were free. They were free to profess their ideas, to develop their own ideas, to develop their own new ideas. And that's why you can find out that today these thinkers, okay, get studied by the economy, by the political science, by the anthropology, by the history, by the sociology, by everybody. Because these thinkers, they were not just confined themselves or limited themselves, okay, with the one particular social science. They were not interested. The thinkers during this time, during this enlightenment time, they were not interested into the development of a new social science. No, they were more interested into the bringing social changes within the society. Their main objective was not to become a professor. Their main objective was not to develop any social science so that student can learn it in the 21st century for the UPSC exam. No, their main objective was how to make society egalitarian, how to make society more free, how to make society more equal, how to make society free from the exploitation, how to make society a better living place for the human being, how to bring back the importance of human being, how to get recognized the rights of individual. That was their motto. That was their main ambition. That was their main objective to these thinkers. And that's why all these thinkers then afterwards, okay, become that much relevant for any social science. Because any social science has a main objective, and that is what? How to make this society more a better place for living. Are you getting my point? So these are the thinkers. Now these thinkers, who were these thinkers? Like Hobbes. Locke, Rousseau, Montesquieu, okay, all these thinkers were there. Before that, Descartes, Spinoza, Immanuel Kant were also there. And all these thinkers, they propounded various type of new ideas. For example, you know very well who was the Kant, you know, Immanuel Kant. What he said? He propounded the deontology. Getting deontology. What is that? Do your duty. Do your duty. Okay. And if you are performing your duty, then whatever may be the action, whatever may be the nature of action, that is an ethical one. Ethical one. And if you believe that doing that particular thing is your duty, you have to do it. You have to do it. No option you have. You cannot get escaped. Okay, you cannot get excuse. You have to do it. And then duties. Okay, so now what is he developed further? A new concept, that is what? Categorical imperative. If anything is valid at the universal level, then yes, that is your real duty. For example, if freedom is a universal value, then it is a categorical imperative, and you have to protect freedom at any cost. At any cost. So means and ends. So here what he said, if the duty is your end and the duty protection the freedom, protection of the rights of individual, then you have to do it. Don't think about the violence or non-violence. Always try to I'll always try to select non-violent ways, but sometimes you have to do it. And at that time, if you are using the weapon for the protection of rights of individual, for the protection of life and liberty of the individual, then it is your duty. You have to do it. Are you getting my point? That is the Kant. Okay? And with and before the Kant, what we can here observe that all other thinkers were also there. Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Rousseau. Are you getting? नाम तो सुना ही होगा, है ना? Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. Here we are focusing upon the political views of these three thinkers, particularly the social contract theory of these three thinkers. Okay, the social contract theory through which all these thinkers have targeted the age-old traditional political rigid system, age-old traditional political old regime they targeted. And thus, their ideas became a root, a major reason behind the collapse of Bourbon family of France. That is what? These ideas became a reason behind the powerful or most impactful French Revolution. What were their ideas? Look at here. First, Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes, the nature, human nature. What he says? Naturally, human being is a selfish and quick to fight. What Hobbes said? Hobbes said that the human being by nature, by birth, are the cruel one, are the selfish one. They are always ready for the fight. Okay? And remain silent and remain non-violent is always an option. But remaining violent is a nature. And that's why it's said, and that's why he said that we remain always in the state of war, of all against all. Means what? Because by nature we are violent, we are selfish, We always try to protect our own interest at the expense of another interest or another person's interest, and that became the cause for the violence, cause for the war, cause for the anything. Just take the example of the America and Iran. What is the reason? Might be from last couple of months you are reading about the Israel and Iran and America, but can you identify what is the main reason behind this? Huh? No, we are confused. We don't know. Why Russia and Ukraine are fighting? Why? Getting my point? Why there is a civil war continuously going on in the South, in the Africa? Why? Why Pakistan never sit idle? Why it always do hard work? Huh? Means what? What kind of hard work? How to attack over the India? Why? So we always remain at war with other people, and that is a continuous state of war, and that's why we need what? A sovereign government. Okay, sovereign government. Why? Because with the help of this sovereign government, erstwhile the kingdoms, we protected ourselves. That somebody we always felt a need to have, so that that person can protect us, that person can save us, that institution can save us. And for that matter, we gave our freedom, we gave our rights to that sovereign institution. Sir, take our freedom, take our rights. Means what? Means we will obey your order. We will obey your order. But please protect us from all those mercenaries, from all those attackers. Please save us. Why we gave our rights? Why we gave our freedom? Because again, in lieu of that protection, we want protection. Somebody need to protect us, our life and property. And there is a birth of the kingship. John Locke. Okay, there are another points we will discuss it, but first of all, John Locke. A reasonable, a moral, but influenced by the environment. John Locke said, I'm little bit disagree with the Hobbes. What Hobbes said? The man or the human being is a cruel and selfish. Selfish. By nature, it is a selfish. Locke said, I disagree with you, sir. I believe that human being by birth, by nature is a reasonable. Means it applies its reason, what to do and what not to do. It always think. Human being, to always think. The human nature is a moral one. It knows what is right and what is not, what is wrong. It knows very well. By nature we are moral. But it is our environment. It is our environment which induces us to act either in a moral way or either in a immoral way. It is the human, it is the nature, it is the environment. Then that environment may be a natural one, that environment may be a social one. For example, we always believe into the kindness, not only toward the human being, but also toward the animals. But if suppose there is one animal and it is attacking, okay, it is in the position to attack over you, what you will do? What you will do? You will say yourself, no, I believe into the kindness. And you will remain silent. What you will do? No, sir. I will collect first of all the stone, whatever I have, and I will also retaliate or try to escape. What? You will try to protect you. And at that time, what about the kindness? That environment, that particular social situation, environmental situation, force you to act against your values. But by nature, you are very moral. You know what is good and what is bad. Are you getting my point? That's the thing. At the same time, John Locke said that a state of equality, freedom, but insecure. That Hobbes said, as we are selfish in nature, that's why we are always at a war with each other. And that's why we have a continuous state of war. But Locke said, no, we are not into the state of war continuously, but we are state of the equality, freedom. Only sometime when the situation forces us to act in a very different manner than our nature, at that time we becomes insecure and we becomes violent, or we chooses the path of violence. Only at that time. And that is, okay, that is the true nature of the state, that the human society. And that's why he said that individuals consent to the form a government to protect the natural rights. And that's why Locke said that yes, we need a government. What Hobbes said? That we need a government to protect ourselves because we are continuously at a war. And that's why we need a government which can protect us. But what Locke said, no, not at all. We are not continuously at a war, but sometimes, whenever the situation changes. But why do we need a government only for the war? Only to protect ourselves from the war? No. Even during the peaceful time, we need a government which can prevent the conflict and which can also resolve the conflict. So to prevent it and to resolve it, we need a government. And then we have formed the government. Individuals have formed the government through their own consent. And now the duty of the government is to protect our natural rights. So further, Locke developed the concept of natural rights. There are certain natural rights which cannot be stripped away from the individual by any government, from any organization. For example, right to liberty, right to life, natural justice. Nobody is able to strip away that particular right. That is a natural right. And so government, kingship or democratic government, whatever, those government have been formed by the individuals through their consent. For what? To prevent the conflict and to resolve the conflict. And that's why government has to always remember this thing, that they have been created by the individual within the society and they are not the divine. This was the direct attack over the kingship. That sir, you are not a divine, but you are here to rule over the society with the consent of individuals. We have created you, not a god. This was the direct attack. Are you getting my point? And then third, the Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was a more radical than the Locke and than the Hobbes. What he said? He said that human being by birth is a noble and peaceful. By birth, by nature, we are a noble one. बहुत अच्छे हैं हम. And the peaceful one also. That's why we always consider any child. Whenever we look at any child, why we feel very peaceful? Why we feel very happy? Because by birth, by nature, the human being is a very peaceful, very noble one. Are you getting my point? And then that's why Rousseau said, it is the society which corrupts the individual. which corrupt the individual. So when the same child to which, by looking at which you become happy, at the same time, when the same child grown up, you started to fear. You started to become insecure. Now what has changed and why that change? That change became there, or that change became possible because of this society. Society transformed that child, innocent child, a happy child, a very noble child into the particular identities, particular a particular nature one, a violent one, benevolent one. The society transforms the child. And it is up to the society. Society decides, and society makes the child either violent or either non-violent. And that's why Rousseau said, the society corrupts the personality of a human being. And that's why he said that we always remain in a peaceful state. So by nature we are a peaceful, by nature we are a noble one. It is the society which makes us corrupt, and that's why he said that the people collectively form a government to preserve the freedom. And that's why he said that we people have formed the government to preserve that original state of freedom, original state of nobleness, original state of equality. We have formed the government for ourselves. And that's why the people must have a direct right, okay? A right to participate into the decision making. Hobbes said, there is a sovereign government we created for the preserving our security. Locke said that people through their own consent they have formed the government. Now Rousseau said, yes, everything is correct, but at the same time, as we have created the government, so we need our representation, direct representation into the decision making, and the government cannot dictate its own wishes upon us. Are you getting the transition? How these thinkers are attacking over the political system? How they are attacking? Okay, that is the enlightenment. These are the ideas which force people to think in a very different manner. Until now, people were looking at the king as a heir or a descendant of the god. But now people started to think, oh my god, no, the king is not a descendant, king is not a heir, king is not the direct, okay, any a connection with the god. But the king is the production, the king is the institution which has been created by us. And now we have that right to again make this institution, that political institution, accountable towards us. Accountable towards us. And that was the need. Getting my point? These are the revolutionary ideas. Now here what happens? Another thinkers, okay, or the last one, okay, here. The Hobbes, he said, the absolute monarchy is necessary to control the natural impulses, but Locke said government should be limited and based on the consent of the governed, but whereas Rousseau said the government should be democratic and based on the general will. At the same time, Hobbes said no inherent natural rights, only survival. The survival is the very important one. Without survival, there is no importance to the rights. Okay, जिंदा ही नहीं है तो rights लेके क्या करोगे? But here, Locke said no, life, liberty and property. These are our natural rights and you cannot strip away from us. But whereas the Rousseau said with life, liberty and property, freedom and equality are also important. And no kingship, no government can strip away. Then maintain order and security. What is the role of state? Hobbes said to maintain law and order situation. Locke said, with that, protect the natural rights. And Rousseau said, with that, ensure the general will and preserve the freedom. Ensure the general will means the will of the people. What people want. Make something what people want. Do something what people want. Listen what people want. Protect what people want. Again, everything what people want. That is the general will. Are you getting my point? That is the Rousseau, and that's why they attacked over the kingship. There is another thinker here, Montesquieu. Okay, Montesquieu. What he said? He criticized absolute monarchy. And he believed that having three branches in government would prevent tyranny. I will explain you, tyranny. Having a separation of powers would prevent any one branch from gaining too much power. Gaining too much power. There are famous quotations. Some. One, in order to have liberty, it is necessary that government be set up so that one man need not to be worried of each other. Okay. So, three things. One, he said, he criticized over the absolute monarchy. So, absolute monarchy means what? When the monarchy is having everything into its hand. For example, look at here. Here, the king or the monarchy, king. What used to be happen at that time? King was the legislature, king was the executive machinery, and king was the same part of the judiciary. Everything used to be done by the king itself. King is enacting new laws. King is enacting new laws. King is making some rules. Legislature. King itself executing those laws, those rules, execution. And whenever there emerges any dispute, okay, because of that execution of law or execution of a rule, then who is there to provide the justice? Again, the king. Now, Montesquieu said, if you yourself is a guilty, if you yourself is a responsible for the execution and for the violation of rules, violation of that rights, how can you provide justice against yourself? That is not possible. And that's why we have to make these three branches separate. There must be a house for the legislation. There must be an institution which can execute, and there must be an institution which can give us a justice. That is the separation of law, separation of power. And here it was again the direct challenge to the existing social system. This social system where every power was concentrated into the hand of few people, though it may be a king, though it may be a feudal, though it may be any administrative authority or pope. And this particular Montesquieu said, we have three separate branches, and they must have accountability with each other. Check and balance principle will be there. Judiciary will keep a check and balance, okay, will keep check over the legislature. Today, what we have in India, today, whenever legislation or legislative bodies, they enact some laws, and if they are anti-constitutional, then judiciary step up. It interferes and it says that this law need to be correct, reform, modify, or otherwise we will strike it down because it is anti-constitutional. Check and balance. Nobody can function in an arbitrary manner. Are you getting my point? That is the Montesquieu. Next, that is the Voltaire. Voltaire, he said, or he fought for the civil liberties, rights, freedoms of citizens. a freedom of speech, freedom of religion, a separation of church and state. He believed that humanity's worst enemies were intolerance, prejudice, and superstition. His famous slogan is, or quotation is here: I do not agree with a word you say. I do not agree with a word you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say. Okay. There may be a possibility that I might not be agree with you, but yes, I am always agree with your right to liberty, right to freedom of speech, and I will try to protect it at any cost. No government can call you Deshtrohi. No government can call you the anti-national if you are criticizing over the government, because it is your right to criticize over the government, because you have chosen the government. The real power resides with you and not with the government. It is a republic. And Montesquieu was a strong supporter of these all civil liberties, freedom of speech. And at the same time, very important thing he has demanded, the separation of church and state. And so there lies a route for the demand, or what happened after that, after this time, that was the secularism. So what is secularism? Separation of state and religion. Montesquieu, Voltaire demanded the same. There must be a separation of church and a state, because again to make a balance, again to protect the liberties of the people. The Pope has a very different set of functions. Why it should interfere into the political manner? Why? Are you getting? So religious tolerance, religious harmony, these were the new key ideas developed by the Voltaire. And at the same time, the women, not only the men were there who were developing new ideas, but women were also there. That women also demanded natural rights for the women. So though Enlightenment thinkers said that women had a natural right, they were limited to the areas of the home and family. Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, Voltaire, Montesquieu, Kant, and the few women thinkers were there. Okay. There was some kind of a disturbance. So Mary Astle, she said, or she wrote a serious proposal to the ladies. And in this book, she questioned the lack of educational opportunities for the women, and she criticized the unequal relationship between men and women in marriage, revolutionary ideas. Until now, nobody was thinking about the liberty or rights of the women. Until now, nobody was thinking about the equality within the family and outside of the family. But here, first of all, the thinkers, women thinkers, they started to challenge all those age-old ideas. Why we should not have equal rights like a man? Mary Wollstonecraft, she wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Women. She said women need education to participate equally in a public life. We need education. Who are you to deny our basic human right? Who are you? Women also must have a right to education. And this led a further enlightenment among the women, gender justice, equality in a true sense. And that's why, folks, these are the major thinkers what we have discussed today. Okay? And because of that, what happened here, all this impact of all these new ideas, how it impacted over the society. First, it challenged the existing prevalence, notions and traditions. The prevalent notions and traditions means what? The age-old divine theory of kingship, age-old subordination of women, age old the supremacy of the papal supremacy, means the Pope supremacy. All these ideas challenged. Empiricism, Enlightenment ideas or thinkers like Spinoza, Descartes, what they said, I think therefore I am, and at the same time, whatever I believe and whatever I experienced, only I believe that is the truth. Empiricism, Spinoza, Descartes, Kant. Ideological war against the superstitious bigotry. There must be a separation of the state and religion. It ignited within human being the virtue of truth. Truth. And how to seek the truth? Again, by using the scientific methodology, experimentation. Empirical is we can only seek for the truth. It promoted the power of reason and the belief of progress. Reason. Human being by birth is a reasonable. And think about that. Apply your reason. Okay? And then only accept if it is truth or not. Even whatever we are telling you, you have to apply your reason and then only decide, is it truth or not. Erosion of the powers of the Pope and Church. Just I told you that. Demand for separation of religion and political system, and it promoted rationalism. So all these led to the impact. Okay, the positive impact of the Enlightenment era. Okay, but at the same time, folks, it also led to the negative impact. All these Enlightenment ideas also led to the negative impact. And what is that negative impact? Because of the Enlightenment ideas, individualism became much more stronger. People started to defend their individualism, individual rights, and now onwards, society, okay, became a secondary, and individual became primary. And that's why even today in America, in Europe, individual and freedom of individual remain always supreme than the society. And what happened here because of that? The community interest, the communitarian feelings, the communitarian way of life, all became secondary. The interest of the society became secondary. This was the first major impact. Second impact, because of the individual, now everybody started to think about their own interest. I am thinking about myself. You are thinking about yourself. And because of that, we started to become isolated. We became too much self-centric. And this too much self-centric, this too much isolation from each other led to the depression. Because we always face some kind of hurdle, some kind of adversaries, some kind of problems in the life. At that time we need interaction, solace, and we find out this solace and solution into the community. But you are now isolated. So we are now facing depression. Depression led to the suicide. And these suicidogenic impulses led to the mass suicide. Number of suicide, not mass suicide, but number of suicide. So suicide, the rate of suicide increased tremendously during this time. This was the second one. Third one, as everybody is telling you that you are the supreme, the individual, your rights within family, outside the family. So people started to think about their own interest, and that's why the families, joint families, were used to, a number of generations used to live together. Now the family started to disintegrate. Joint family now started to become nuclear family. This was the negative impact. At the same time, Because of all these ideas, then leaded a French Revolution, and French Revolution created a mass violence, and that violence sustained for more than 7 to 8 years, around 1 decade. So Enlightenment ideas created instability, political instability. Enlightenment ideas led to the violence. At the same time, all these Enlightenment ideas also led to the transformation in economy. For example, Adam Smith was one of the thinker, and he propounded laissez-faire. State should not intervene into the economy. He propounded the liberalism, which was based for the further industrial revolution. And then in this industrial revolution, there started a large scale exploitation of the workers. But state believe now that state should not interfere into the economy. So state was not interfering, and the large amount of these workers, they remain always exposed for the exploitation. So that is also another negative impact of enlightenment. So folks, are you getting my point? So this, the positive impact and the negative impact led to the further response by the thinkers. So do you have any query, any question until this? Do you have any question? No? So now we will discuss here that how the responses given by the thinkers, what kind of responses given by the thinkers, who were all these reactionary thinkers, Louis de Bonald, Joseph de Maistre. What was their reaction, what was their response, and what was the sophisticated thinker, and how these sophisticated thinkers gave their response. Then how, because of the responses given by these thinkers, how sociology emerged. That also we have to discuss. And then we will discuss also one PYQ, okay, but all things we will discuss it tomorrow, okay. Until that, if you have any question, you can just connect us. Because of the number of students, they were unable to attend the demo sessions or the lectures, actual lectures in the last week because of the heavy rain. So we have keep continued these open sessions in this week also, okay. Thank you, all the best.